Alright, so welcome back to Blueprint Bytes, where I teach budding developers how to use the most important Unreal Engine blueprint nodes in isolation without unnecessary confusion. Today we're covering basic math. When you're making a game, you're constantly working with numbers like health, score, ammo, timers, whatever, and Unreal Engine blueprints give us a set of simple math nodes to handle them. But did you know that these nodes also have a feature that lets you do more with less blueprint clutter? In this episode of Blueprint Bytes, we're breaking down the add, subtract, multiply, and divide nodes, how they work, what they do, and how a single button can make your blueprints cleaner and more efficient. Let's jump in. Alright, so here we are inside the third-person template project, just like in the previous videos, and as usual, we'll be adding our work directly to the third-person character blueprint, so let's open that up. Alright, let's create our first math node. Right-click anywhere in the event graph, search for add, and select the add function from the results. Great. Now, instead of explaining everything up front like I did in other videos, I'm actually going to act on some feedback and hook this up step by step and explain it as we go, so stick with me. So first, we actually need two numbers to add. Let's go over to the left panel and create two variables. Name the first one input A and set it to an integer. And then create another one called input B and make sure that one is also an integer. Now, if we want to perform any math on these, we're going to need some values. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some defaults. Hit compile and select input A on the left and go over to the right and set the default value to something like 6. Then select input B on the left and set its default as well. I'll use 3. Okay, so now that we've got our two numbers, we actually want to go ahead and hook them up to the add node. If you look at the two input pins on the add node, this is where we'll be plugging them in. Let's drag the input A variable onto the graph and make sure to select the get and do the same for input B. Now, connect the input A to the first pin on the add node and B to the second one. So what's happening here? These inputs go into the add node and Unreal Engine processes the math for us. But what happens to the result? That's where the output pin comes in. The right side pin is our output. This is where the final answer, in this case 6 plus 3, will be sent, but we need to store that value somewhere. Let's create one more variable to hold the result. On the left hand side, click add variable, name it result, and make sure it's an integer. Now drag result onto the graph to the right of our add node. This time make sure to select set because we want to store the output of our math operation. Now connect the output pin from the add node to the input pin on the set node for result. At this point, the blueprint knows to take input A and input B, add them together, and store the sum inside of the result. But this won't run unless something triggers it. Alright, so since we want to keep this simple, let's trigger everything as soon as the game starts. Right click and search for event begin play and add that to the graph. Then connect the execution pin from the begin play event to the execution pin on the set result node. Excellent. As soon as the game starts, Unreal Engine will run the add node and store the total of the two added numbers in the result variable, which is great, but we still can't actually see the result, so let's fix that. And we're going to do that by using the print string node, just like we have in other videos. So go ahead and drag from the execution pin on the set result node and search for a print string, then add it. Now connect the output pin from the set result node to the in string of the print string node. You'll notice Unreal automatically added a small conversion node between them. That's just for converting our integer into a string so that it can be displayed as text. Now let's compile, save, and close up to go back to the editor and hit play. And boom, you should see a 9 appear in the top left corner of the screen, the sum of our two numbers. Alright, now that everything's set up with our variables, add node, begin play event, and our print string node, if we actually wanted to switch out for subtract, multiply, or divide nodes, it would be really easy. All we have to do is swap out the add node itself for the operation we want to use. Here, let me show you. First, right-click anywhere on the graph and search for subtract, then add that to the graph. Notice how it looks just like the add node, but with a minus symbol? That's because it works exactly the same way, it just subtracts instead of adding. Now, let's delete the add node and reconnect our variables to the subtract node just like they were before. Then, hook up the output pin to the set result node, and then compile, save, exit back to the editor, and hit play. And there it is, 3 appears in the top left, just like we expected. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's now swap it out for the multiply node. Right click, search for multiply, and add that multiply node. Then just like before, this just works the exact same way, except it multiplies the inputs. Go ahead and delete the subtract node, reconnect input A and input B, and hook up the output to the set result node. Compile, save, close back to the editor, and hit play. And you should see the number 18 appear in the top left. Now let's do the exact same for divide. Right click, search for divide, and add that node to the graph. Replace the multiply node and reconnect everything just like we've done for everything else in this video. Compile, save, close back to the main editor, and hit play, and you should see the number 2 appear on your screen. Before we wrap up, let's jump back into our blueprint for a quick pro tip, because I mentioned at the start that there was one button that can make your blueprints much tidier. Do you see this little add pin button on all 4 of the math nodes that we've seen today? This lets you add more inputs, so instead of chaining multiple nodes together, you can handle several numbers in a single operation. No need for extra nodes doing the exact same thing. And that's it for this episode of Blueprint Bytes. Now you know how to use the add, subtract, multiply, and divide nodes, and also how to keep your blueprints cleaner and more efficient with that add pin feature. If you find this helpful, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and let me know in the comments what the weirdest bug you've ever seen is in a game that's caused by a math problem. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.